So the story there is I've been teaching Aikido for 20 years. And so part of our testing procedure is a 5-person freestyle where 5 people attack you. And so I've been a recipient of that, and I've also been part of the 5-person mob. So that's what that referred to. Really other quick fact about that music, obviously Doctor Who. And it's not, I know that there was another Doctor Who theme song earlier today. The story behind this is about 4 years ago, I had an opportunity to be on Hardball sitting next to President Obama. And so he comes in, introductions, what's your name? I say, Abhijit Dasgupta. I said, there's no way I'm saying that. And so for the next 30 minutes, I was the doctor. The only reference to the doctor I know is Doctor Who. So that's what's behind that. So today I'm just talk about sort of some practical things that I needed to do, and so I get to present on it. So it's about dealing with teaching materials. And I thought this was relevant because I know plenty of people in this room teach in different contexts, either as workshops. Apparently, Jared can't even stay at home anymore with how much he teaches. And Mark teaches here. There's plenty of people at Georgetown. So just thinking about this. So I teach, among other things, the basic R course at NIH. And this was developed out of some necessities of teaching this over and over again. But before, let's see if this clicker actually works for me. It does. Astonishing. So who am I? Really big, fat guy. Regardless, I started this entire community with Mark, as he said, 9 years ago. It's grown and blossomed. I'm so happy. And we can have these conferences. So the story goes back that before Jared came here last year, we were talking about trying to bring USR here. And we were like, can we really do that? And then apparently Jared just announces in New York that he's coming to DC. And so we're much happier now. So I was on the board of DC Data Community DC, which Janet ably leads now. So by trade, I'm a biostatistician. I work at NIH, which for those of you who are not local is about 20 miles north of here, the premier biomedical research institute in the country, and if not the world. And I also have a startup that I work with, which is across the river, almost literally. And so I eschew the word data science or data scientist because I don't know what that means anymore. So I'm a biostatistician, I am a data analyst, what have you. Some people put that under the moniker, so that's fine. But the reason I'm going to give this talk today is I teach, as I said, R. For the last 3 or 4 years, I teach the basic R class at the NIH grad school. And my population of students are bench scientists primarily. So it's a very non-coding group of people, right? These are people who are barely comfortable with Excel in some cases, which means their data management skills leave something to be desired. Some people are laughing because they've obviously dealt with this. So this is the course webpage that I created about 3 years ago and has been evolved. This year I'm not co-teaching it, which is nice, which means I get full control over it. But what got me going with this is our Markdown and how you could create web pages with it, and you could create blogs with it, and you create websites with it. And so this is actually, I'll talk about how sort of bits and pieces of this. How this is actually three sub-websites with a cover shell. Why? And I'll get to why it's 3 websites. But the needs are, it's creating content that is easily available to my students, can be updated easily, and from my side, can be maintained easily. So as a teacher, you have to produce new slides, you have to produce homework, you have to grade homework, you have to do all of that stuff that teaching involves. And lazy me trying to get R to do things. I think I have the same virus Jared does, where he tries to do everything in R. In graduate school way back when, I was at Washington, and for those of you who have ever know people from the University of Washington, they don't teach SAS there. It's an R S plus school. Until 1 year, in our second year, someone tried to teach us SAS for a mixed models class. And 2 of us decided we're going to do this in R regardless. So so that's how far back I go in R. So this is the other class I teach, which is data viz, but very similar websites. And then also with workshops. The point here is that there's several commonalities here. You need to have a syllabus, you need to have some structure that's overt. You need to have lectures that are updated. You need to have homework, you need to have a way of sharing resources. And for the workshops, I actually have course notes as well. So literally making the book on the subject. So when I'm teaching, what I'm thinking about is two aspects. There's the in-class piece, that is when I am in class. So it's the slides, it's potential demos. How do I express that? How do I show that? So sometimes it's in RStudio, sometimes is in a dashboard like Mallory described. Sometimes it's just interactive graphics so I can show people. So GG Animate is another thing I use a lot. And on the other side is the resource that people go home and get to consume. Those are things like course notes, other resources, links to the RStudio cheat sheets, links to the wonderful community of our authors we have who are putting their books out on the web for free, which is wonderful. And I continue to encourage people to do that. But on the other side, I have course requirements, right? So I have to have a syllabus that I have to submit. I have to give out homework. I have to grade homework. I have to turn in grades. So how much of this can I actually automate so I don't have to wonder about how to do it every year? And so conceptually, when I thought about this about 3 years ago, I said, okay, roughly speaking, I need a website. Okay, I can do that in R Markdown. Let's see if this. And then slides, I was doing IO slides. I got enamored with Sharingan. I wanted to learn it, so all my slides are written in Sharingan. For those of you who don't know it, this is something that Abhijit developed a few years ago. I personally like it. You don't have to like it, but it is what it is. It has a lot of flexibility that I like. Homework, I make them submit in R Markdown, which makes it easier for me to see whether things work and for me to annotate. And my notes, course notes, end up in Bookdown, because I'm literally writing chapter by chapter what the topics are corresponding to each lecture. So that's the concept. And this is pretty straightforward. I need some glue to put this together into one package, which, as I say, will be an R Markdown website. But, every year is a little different. I tweak things, which means I have to create new product. I have to get new slides, new homeworks. I have to keep this updated, keep track of things, put it on the web so that I don't have to, so that people know where it is. And not rebuild every time. So I was thinking make, maybe. So something that just updates what's new, right? As opposed to updating everything, because it is, at the end of 15 weeks, there's a lot of material on this website. So you don't want to have to rebuild everything. And it would be nice to have some direction, some table of contents where people can just go, oh, that's that lecture, that's that topic. And automated processes. Can I not have to look at the calendar and go, okay, this date I do this date I do this, the by hand thing. And for my homework, how can I automate the process of capturing the homework? There's people who do this in GitHub. I'm not going to teach a bunch of Ben scientists GitHub. I'm crazy, but I'm not mad. So there's not going to be GitHub. So the solution I came up with was Dropbox, actually. And then there's grading. How do I do the grades as I'm looking at the homework? How can I grab the grades and put them into a nice tabular form that I can now submit at the end of the semester? So the syllabus ends up being, so I will say I don't know attribute everyone, but I've stolen liberally from the internet to do some of this. So on this one, there's a bunch of code here. But regardless, the main point is that I can automate the dates. Because I have a weekly class. If I have a start date, I can have R just go boom, 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 here are my weeks. I just have to give a vector that says, what am I doing each of those weeks? And then that just becomes a table. I put it out on cable, and it makes a nice format. I know Mallory's going to say, why didn't you do DT, right? Sure, I can do it. It's in a small table. We're okay. So this turns out to look like this. So I don't have to worry about the dates any year. I just need to know the start date, which is nice. This is very easy. This is actually part of a Markdown web page where I have the table of contents floating on the side. So this doesn't just have the syllabus. It also has sort of the requirements, the books and learning materials, academic policy, the usual paraphernalia around a course, right? So the second piece I'm going to talk about quickly is the table of contents. And this was sort of interesting. So the table of contents for my lectures. So I'm going to do lectures weekly. I don't want to have to go back to my Markdown or HTML and go, oh, I made lecture 8 today with this title. Can I now put this in and put all the pieces in? The crucial step in this is learning that I can grab each Markdown slide. I'm the sharing gun, right? So it's Markdown. I can grab the title from the metadata and populate my table automatically. So I don't actually have to physically touch the table of contents. The other piece that's really useful for me was glue, because glue allowed me to create the web links very easily, and it just populated it. And you'll see I use glue a lot. And in terms of formatting at the bottom, there's a package called Cable Extra, which some of you may know, which puts a lot of niceties around cable. So I add some styling to it in terms of striped and how wide it is and so on and so forth. Whoops. And so the nice thing about this, and I'll tell you how those links happen. So you're seeing I have the original Markdown. I have the HTML, and I also have a PDF version, because apparently I've got students who like to print them out and scribble on them. HTML does not print out well typically, right? And then it just automates it. So basically you can't see further down. I just finished lecture 9. This is my current website. So it actually populates as I go along, because I'm basically using something to process it every week when I do my lectures. Same thing with the homeworks. As long as I have a folder of homeworks that I'm giving out, I use this last few lines to automate using glue data. So I have a data frame, and I'm using glue data to just go, template it out. And so that ends up getting me this. Why do I give the Markdown out? Because that's the template for what they're going to submit back. They can download the Markdown, fill it in with the code, and send it back to me. And so I've already given them the template. So they don't have as much of an overhead to learn Markdown, de novo. Oh, sorry, this way. So this was something that was really interesting. It actually ties in with what Dan was talking about earlier today with Reticulate, and what Mark was talking about APIs. So the solution I have for getting homework is using a feature in Dropbox called, I think it's called file receipts. So you can put a link out, and as long as someone has the link, they can click on it and upload their files to a designated folder that you design, that you state. Turns out, Dropbox has a fantastic Python API. Why? Because Guido van Rossum was there the last 6 years. The nice thing about that is that I can write a Python program that will automatically, given the parameters I want. The parameters I want are, what's the deadline, what's the name of the project, and what directory that gets sent to. It'll go out using the API and grab me the link. So I don't have to point and click at all, right? And so here, I actually use Reticulate inside my Markdown for that page, for the homework page, and just grab that function and run it. I have my link, and that turns into that submission link. So entirely something I'm not touching, which I like. So how do you do homework evaluation? So you know how I get the homework. So I get the homework, I run it on my computer. Guess what's my friend here? The package here. If you've ever read Jenny Bryan, you know how she loves that. It gives you a way of getting standardized relative path names. And so I use that, I run it, then I can comment on it. I just comment in Markdown. And at the bottom, at the last line, I structured that way, I put the score. So 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10, what have you. If I have that structure, I can use R to just grab each file, grab the last line of the file. I just solved the manual entry problem. I just grabbed everything, now it's a vector. So the part I didn't say here, one of the things Dropbox does is it adds the name to the front of the submission, of who's submitting it. So now I parse their name from the name of the file, I extract the score from the bottom of the file. Guess what? I've got my linked spreadsheet for that homework. Now it's a matter of just joining it across the homeworks to create the spreadsheet. Right? So I submit the homework, and I have a homework 1, homework 2, so on. I can just do a map over that entire system at the end of the semester, grab everything and have a spreadsheet. It also allows me to say who hasn't been submitting, who has been submitting, because you get blanks, right? Because I'm just doing left joins all the time, and so my names are constant. So that's the parsing. The last part, I don't know where I found this, but there's actually a package called Gmail R. So you can get a Google API key and send Gmails from R with whatever material. So what I do, I have a script now that uses Gmail R, grabs their annotated homeworks. I have their names. I have a database of their emails, right? Because I get that because I'm the teacher. I parse that, put them together. I send emails out, one button, it goes out to the entire class. I think Jared did that once several years ago, and I think that's what got me. Because you did that for some of your posts, right, originally? So that's part of my thing. That's the feedback loop that I create, that when they give it to me, it's an R process to get it back to them. I have not played with Learn R and Grader. I know Dan Chen's been working over the summer on that. It seems very cool. It just wasn't in my pipeline when I started this. But I think it's worth exploring as to how to deal with homeworks and grading that and making that more automated as well. So, got the process done. I need to update this and need to some make-like thing. So I found Drake. And Will Landau was very nice and corresponding and helped me with setting some of this up. Drake is one of many, many potential workflow management packages in R. There's a site somewhere, if you Google it, someone has a workflower. There's a package called Workflow R, which has a list of like 25 workflow management packages in R. So people have been writing it. It's not prominent, but it's there. So I chose Drake, and Drake is written in R. And the language basically ends up being, does this actually have a pointer? Yeah, it does. So this one, for all my slides, I'm creating the HTMLs, right? So I render the RMD file, tell it what the output directory is, and it happens. And essentially, there's some R-lang code in there saying, I have a list of the file names, process it through as a list. The next one is actually fun. Slide to PDF is something I wrote as a wrapper. It's running Pagedown, the Chrome print function in Pagedown. It actually does the best job I have found for the HTML slides as an automatic process. And so this automatically just takes our Markdown files and converts them into PDF slides. And then the bottom, the last piece here, creates the table of contents. So it creates the top level web page. And so once again, it's a render site from R Markdown. And then there's some triggers that happen as to if any of the slides gets updated since the last time Drake saw it, run the top level again because you have to update the table of contents. And so it's very similar with the homework stuff. I'm not talking about the course notes today simply because I have not been doing much course notes for this class, but that's just a Bookdown site. So you write up your stuff in R Markdown, run Bookdown on it, you'll get a nice HTML page. If you've ever seen, R for Data Science that Hadley has online, or many of them, the R cookbook that JD, it is JD that has it, right? The version 2. So a bunch of people have Bookdown sites. So if you go to bookdown.org, you'll see all of them that have been submitted. It's basically the same format, but it's internal. And I always keep an option, once again, my audience, there's a PDF download version. So the point, I was doing this piecemeal, and I started working on packaging this. It's called Coursedown. It still needs work. But the idea is to try and create a templated structure. So I have 3 websites, essentially. There's a lecture site, which is a site unto itself, the homework site, which is a site unto itself, and the notes, which is a Bookdown site. And it's wrapped around an overall sort of front-end web page, right? Which has the syllabus and the resources and the sort of the top-level non-dynamic stuff. And the assumption was that I'm deploying it on GitHub Pages. So there's a particular structure, so everything gets pushed to the doc folder. And this provides some templates for how slides should look, how the web pages should look, and the like. So there, I created a course YAML file, which basically stores the course information. So when I run my templates through the YAML, all of them are branded with the course name and the course instructor and the dates and so on and so forth. So it's very much a work in progress. Happy to have people collaborate on this. Can you move? Okay, so the talk today is about many opinionated choices. I made choices about Drake. I made choices about what our Markdown slide thing I'm using. But it tends to work. I'd love to have collaboration to fix the kinks. But it's possible to do a lot of this automated. So all I have to worry about really is content. Create the slides, create the homework. Everything else just happens. Thank you.